Another day, another banger. Today we'll be jumping into the Ghost Rider films. This will include 2 movies, and without further ado, there will be some major spoilers up ahead, and as always, enjoy the recap. In the towns of the Wild West, a legend spread about a Ghost Rider, a servant of the devil tasked with hunting down impure souls. Over a century ago, the last of these knights was sent to the village of San Venganza to seal a contract, gathering 1,000 wicked souls from Mephisto. But when he realized the overwhelming power these spirits could grant, the rider defied his master. Instead of delivering the contract, he fled, seeking refuge in sacred grounds, places where evil could never step foot. In the early 1990s, a young acrobat named Johnny Blaze dazzles the crowd with his daring stunts. But when he gets distracted by his girlfriend Roxanne, he nearly loses control of his bike. Realizing he was just showing off, his father Barton scolds him, leading to an argument. In the middle of their fight, Barton suddenly has a severe coughing episode, leaving Johnny deeply worried about his health. Later, just as Johnny gathers the courage to confront his father about it, Roxanne appears and asks to speak with him alone. They walk to the tree where they shared their first kiss, and she breaks the news. Her father is sending her away to live with her mother. Fearing they may never see each other again, Johnny suggests they run away together and plan to leave the next day. That night, Johnny returns home to find his father asleep with his beloved in his hand. Frustrated, he tosses them in the trash, only to discover a crumpled medical report inside. Curious, he unfolds it and is devastated to learn that Barton has lung cancer, and it's spreading fast. As he struggles with what to do, Johnny heads to the tent to work on the bikes. There, a mysterious man appears and offers him a deal. When Johnny refuses, the stranger brings up Barton's illness, describing the horrors of cancer in chilling detail. Johnny is stunned. How does this man know about his father's condition? The man then makes a tempting offer. He can cure Barton, making him perfectly healthy. But in return, Johnny must make a pact for his soul. Thinking it's a joke, Johnny laughs, but the stranger remains serious, promising that Barton will wake up completely healed. All Johnny has to do is sign the contract. Curious, Johnny picks up the parchment and begins to read. Just then, something pricks his finger and a drop of blood falls onto the signature field. In that instant, the agreement is sealed. The next morning, Johnny wakes up, convinced that everything from the night before was just a bad dream. But to his shock, he finds his father completely healthy. Overjoyed, Barton reveals that he had cancer and had been struggling for weeks to find the right moment to tell Johnny. Yet, just when he finally decided to talk about it, the illness mysteriously disappeared. Feeling better than ever, Barton excitedly makes plans for the future. He talks about a new stunt involving helicopters, but quickly notices that Johnny isn't as enthusiastic. Concerned, he asks what's wrong. Johnny hesitates before finally admitting that he plans to run away with Roxanne. Barton doesn't agree with the decision, but when he realizes how serious his son is, he ultimately decides to support him. As a parting gift, he hands Johnny the keys to his favorite motorcycle. As Johnny rides off, Barton heads to the arena, preparing for his next big stunt, a daring jump through a flaming ring. But something goes horribly wrong. In front of a stunned audience, Barton loses control and crashes, meeting a tragic end. Hearing the commotion, Johnny rushes back in horror, only to find his father lifeless. And standing among the crowd is the same mysterious man from the night before. In that moment, Johnny realizes the truth. His deal was real, and he had been tricked by the devil himself. Blaming himself for Barton's death, Johnny speeds toward the meeting point. But as he rides, strange visions flood his mind, causing him to lose control and crash at a crossroads. Dazed, he struggles to make sense of what's happening when Mephisto suddenly appears before him. The demon commands Johnny to get up, coldly stating that the dead are of no use to him. Furious, Johnny accuses him of causing his father's death, but Mephisto calmly reminds him that their deal was only to cure Barton's cancer, never to extend his life. Overcome with rage, Johnny lunges at the demon, but before he can land a hit, Mephisto vanishes into thin air. His voice lingers in the air, warning Johnny that one day he will come to collect what is owed. Until then, Johnny must stay alive. Before disappearing completely, Mephisto places a hand on Johnny's shoulder. In an instant, an unbearable heat surges through his body, as if he's burning from the inside out. Then, just as suddenly as it began, the pain vanishes, and the demon is gone. Shaken but seemingly unharmed, Johnny pulls himself up and gets back on his bike. He races to the tree where Roxanne is waiting. But instead of taking her hand and running away, he simply stares at her. Without a word, he turns and rides off alone, leaving her behind. Over the next few years, Johnny Blaze builds a legendary career as a stunt performer, pushing the limits with increasingly dangerous feats. For his latest show, he attempts his most daring stunt yet, jumping over 20 trucks. But as he soars through the air, visions of his past deal suddenly flood his mind. Disoriented, he loses control upon landing, crashes, and even has his helmet crushed under his own motorcycle. Yet to everyone's shock, Johnny wakes up within seconds, completely unscathed. He rises to his feet as if nothing happened, sending the crowd into a frenzy. Meanwhile, at a roadside bar, a biker enjoys his drink when a mysterious figure arrives. None other than Blackheart, the son of Mephisto. Oblivious to who he's dealing with, the biker warns him that this is gang territory and orders him to leave, but Blackheart is unfazed. Without hesitation, he plunges a single finger into the man's chest, causing his body to rot from the inside out. Inside the bar, chaos erupts as Blackheart eliminates everyone in his path. Then, with a dark incantation, he summons 3 fallen angels to serve him. Reunited after ages, the sinister beings listen as Blackheart reveals his mission. He has come to Earth to claim the lost contract of San Venganza. With their help, he plans to complete the mission and seize control of the human world, ensuring that no one can stop them. Just then, Mephisto himself appears outside the bar, demanding to know why his son has come to Earth. Furious upon learning of Blackheart's plan, he warns him to abandon his quest, but Blackheart, knowing he is not a fallen angel, smirks. His father holds no power over him in the human world. However, Mephisto still has one last weapon at his disposal, his Ghost Rider. Unaware of the chaos about to unfold, Johnny Blaze steps out of his dressing room, preparing for his next big stunt. Among the flashing cameras of the paparazzi, he spots a familiar face, Roxanne. She approaches and asks if he would do an interview with an old friend. Happy to see her again, Johnny agrees, and the broadcasting team quickly sets up. But as the cameras roll, Johnny ignores every question, instead reminiscing about their past. Frustrated, the director cuts the interview short. Afterward, Johnny invites Roxanne to watch his performance, but she declines, getting into a station van and heading home. Though visibly shaken, Johnny pushes forward, determined to put on a show. For his next stunt, he plans to jump across an entire football field. To make things even more extreme, he adds 6 helicopters as obstacles, the exact number his father once mentioned before his tragic accident. Wanting to impress Roxanne, Johnny straps on his helmet and starts the jump ahead of schedule, accelerating at full speed and igniting his nitro boost to clear the helicopters in a spectacular leap. The moment he lands, he wastes no time. Burning rubber, he speeds straight to the interstate to catch up with Roxanne. As she refuses to stop, Johnny takes a bold risk. He swerves in front of the van, forcing the driver to brake. As she steps out, frustrated and confused, Johnny seizes the moment and asks her to dinner. After a brief hesitation, she agrees, setting the time for 8 o'clock at her hotel's restaurant. As Johnny prepares to leave, he suddenly notices his hands turning an intense shade of red for no apparent reason. Startled, he rushes to wash them, but the moment the water touches his skin, smoke begins to rise. Before he can make sense of it, a voice calls out from outside. Stepping outside, he finds Mephisto waiting for him. The demon tells Johnny that it's time to fulfill his end of the bargain. He must destroy Blackheart. If he succeeds, he'll be free of the pact and have his soul returned. But Johnny, still furious over being tricked, refuses to serve him. Determined to escape, he jumps onto the motorcycle his father gave him. Mephisto, however, won't take no for an answer. With a flick of his power, he forces the bike to accelerate at an impossible speed. Flames erupt along the road as Johnny struggles to regain control. His license plate flies off, left behind in the chaos. As he speeds out of town, something even more terrifying happens. His body ignites, his skin melts away, and he transforms into the Ghost Rider, a flaming skeleton with immense power. Meanwhile, Blackheart and his fallen angels arrive at the ruins of an old cemetery, searching for the lost contract of San Venganza. To their frustration, they discover that the site has been relocated. They track down a janitor, interrogating him until he reveals that the church moved the graves elsewhere and that only the priest knows the new location. Satisfied with the information, Blackheart mercilessly destroys the man before preparing for his next move. Just then, Ghost Rider arrives, his fiery presence cutting through the darkness. No longer the Johnny Blaze they once knew, he orders Blackheart to return to hell. But before he can act, one of the fallen angels attacks, wrapping a chain around his neck. It should have been a fatal move, but Ghost Rider doesn't need to breathe. Instead, he rises without struggle, gripping the steel chain and twisting it into a weapon. As he charges forward, the water demon traps him, giving the earth demon a chance to strike. In a brutal attack, Ghost Rider is run over by a massive truck. Believing him to be defeated, the demons lower their guard. But they are wrong. Ghost Rider emerges from beneath the wreckage unharmed. Without hesitation, he punches Gristle, melting part of his face. Then, wielding his burning chain, he superheats the Earth Demon's body, turning him into solid limestone. With his first enemy shattered into pieces, Ghost Rider calls his motorcycle to him. The moment he touches it, flames surge over the metal, transforming the bike into a monstrous, hellish machine. While Roxanne waits at the restaurant, Johnny roams the city, searching for Blackheart. As he rides through the dark streets, he comes across a thief attempting to mug a woman. The moment he realizes what's happening, he silently nods for the terrified victim to run. Then he turns his attention to the attacker. Ghost Rider grabs the thief by the neck and commands him to look into his eyes. Desperate to escape, the mugger stabs Johnny in the back, but the blade melts instantly against his fiery body. Peering into the man's soul, Ghost Rider sees the darkness within. Stains of innocent blood. Without hesitation, he unleashes his power, forcing the criminal to relive every bit of suffering he has caused. The overwhelming torment corrupts the thief's spirit, draining the life from his body as he collapses onto the pavement. With dawn approaching, Johnny speeds toward a cemetery. But as the first rays of sunlight break over the horizon, his transformation fades. His body returns to normal and his bike reverts to its original form. Completely drained, he stumbles toward his father's grave. Weak and exhausted, he collapses in front of the headstone, where he is soon discovered by the cemetery's gravedigger. A few hours later, Johnny wakes up feeling an unbearable thirst. He quickly gulps down the mugs of water placed beside his bed, trying to quench it. As his mind clears, he begins searching for his bike, but instead runs into the gravedigger once again. The old man confirms the truth. Everything that happened was real. Johnny's hope that it was all just a nightmare is shattered. While tending to Johnny's wounds, the gravedigger explains the nature of the Ghost Riders. During the day, Johnny will live his life as a normal man, but when night falls, the Ghost Rider will take over, hunting down evil wherever it hides. Johnny recalls flashes of the previous night, especially the overwhelming darkness he saw in the mugger's soul. The gravedigger nods knowingly and reveals the name of this power, the penance stare, an ability that forces the wicked to experience every ounce of suffering they have inflicted, burning their very soul. Curious, Johnny asks if there were others like him. The gravedigger confirms that the last known Ghost Rider appeared 150 years ago in San Venganza. He then tells the full story of the Pact of 1,000 Souls, explaining the curse that binds Johnny to his new fate. Later, Johnny returns to town and sees the destruction left in the wake of his nighttime transformation. Amidst the wreckage, he spots Roxanne speaking to the woman he saved the night before. After the interview, Johnny approaches Roxanne, hoping to explain and apologize. But she isn't interested. Frustrated and hurt, she tells him that ever since they parted ways, her life has only improved, and she intends to keep it that way. Frustrated and alone, Johnny returns home, determined to gain control over his powers. He spends hours training, trying to harness the energy burning inside him. Just as the sun begins to set, Roxanne unexpectedly shows up, wanting to apologize for how she reacted earlier. But Johnny, knowing that nightfall will bring another transformation, grows increasingly anxious. He tries to make her leave, but when she refuses, he decides to tell her the truth. He sold his soul to the devil and has become the Ghost Rider. Naturally, Roxanne doesn't believe him. To her, it sounds like a desperate excuse for abandoning her all those years ago. Angry and hurt, she storms out, convinced that Johnny is just playing games with her emotions. Moments after she leaves, police sirens wail outside. The police captain arrives with several officers and arrests Johnny, accusing him of multiple murders. They found his license plate at the crime scenes, the mugger, the janitor, and the bikers at the bar. At the station, Johnny is taken in for questioning. While the police captain aggressively pushes for answers, the sergeant, noticing his partner's temper, steps in to handle the interrogation. As he prepares to light it, something strange happens. The flame keeps pulling toward Johnny as if drawn by an invisible force. Though puzzled, the sergeant ignores it and continues questioning Johnny about his whereabouts the night before. Johnny maintains his innocence, but the officers decide to hold him for the night. Inside the holding cell, the other prisoners recognize him and see an opportunity to take down a famous stuntman. They gang up on him, beating him until suddenly the transformation begins. In an instant, Johnny erupts into flames, becoming the Ghost Rider. The prisoners are thrown back as a wave of heat surges through the cell, knocking them all unconscious. With the danger gone, Ghost Rider steals a leather jacket from one of the fallen criminals and melts the iron bars with his touch. He walks out of the station, heading toward his bike. Just as he's about to leave, a lone officer steps forward, baton raised, trying to stop him. But Ghost Rider has no interest in fighting the police. Instead, he simply gives the officer a casual wave and walks away into the night. Outside the city, Blackheart arrives at a church, demanding answers from the priest about the San Venganza contract. When the priest refuses to speak, Blackheart eliminates him without hesitation. Sensing his enemy's presence, the spirit of vengeance speeds toward the scene, but the entire police force is already on his trail. They corner him on a bridge, blocking every possible escape. With no other way out, Ghost Rider makes a daring move. He rides straight off the edge, plunging into the river below. But instead of sinking, he rides across the surface of the water, defying gravity until he reaches the streets again. Before he can get his bearings, Abagor, the demon of wind, attacks. The powerful entity moves too fast for Ghost Rider to catch, shifting and swirling like an untouchable storm. Just then, police cars close in. With no time to waste, Ghost Rider makes an impossible escape. He rides straight up the side of a skyscraper, scaling the building as officers look on in disbelief. The police helicopter follows, attempting to cut him off. Annoyed, Ghost Rider lashes out, swinging his flaming chain and sending the aircraft spiraling away, forcing the pilot to retreat. With the interference gone, he turns his focus back to Abagor. Roxanne, watching from the streets below, realizes that Johnny was telling the truth all along. Ghost Rider tries using the penance stare on Abagor, but it has no effect. Being made of wind, the demon easily escapes his grasp. Thinking fast, Johnny ignites his chain, spinning it rapidly to create a vortex of fire. The swirling flames consume all the oxygen, suffocating the wind demon and burning him out of existence. As Ghost Rider lands back on the street, dozens of police officers surround him, weapons drawn. Roxanne rushes forward, trying to stop them, but before she can reach him, the officers open fire. Bullets tear through Johnny's fiery form, but they have no effect. With no reason to fight back, Ghost Rider summons a massive wall of flames, cutting off the officers and giving himself an escape route. He revs his bike and speeds away into the night, but Blackheart was watching everything. Seeing Roxanne's reaction, he realizes her connection to Johnny, and in that moment, he chooses his next target. At dawn, Johnny heads back to the gravedigger, hoping for more answers. The old man finally reveals the truth about the previous Ghost Rider, a former ranger named Carter Slade. Driven by greed, Slade was once a lawman who found himself arrested and locked away for months. In his desperation, he made a deal with Mephisto, sealing his fate as the Ghost Rider. After his transformation, Slade was sent to San Venganza, where he claimed the 1,000 cursed souls. But upon realizing how dangerous the contract was, he chose to betray Mephisto. Instead of handing it over, he ran, hiding the contract and taking its location to his grave. Johnny now understands the full danger of the situation. Blackheart won't stop until he finds the contract, putting everyone close to Johnny in danger. Fearing for Roxanne, he rushes back to town to check on her. Meanwhile, the gravedigger hears unsettling noises outside. Blackheart has arrived. The demon wastes no time, mercilessly beating the old man in an attempt to force him to reveal the contract's location. But despite the pain, the gravedigger laughs in his face, taunting him and saying he will fail, just like his father. At the same time, Roxanne goes to Johnny's apartment, hoping to find him. Instead, she finds Blackheart waiting for her. Unaware that Roxanne is in danger, Johnny searches for her at the police station. When he doesn't find her, he heads home, only to discover her badly injured. Rage boils inside him as Blackheart steps forward. Johnny immediately transforms into the Ghost Rider and unleashes the penance stare. But to his horror, it has no effect. Blackheart, having no soul, is immune to the Spirit of Vengeance's most powerful ability. Before Johnny can react, Blackheart overpowers him with ease, knocking him unconscious and forcing him back into human form. Victorious, the demon declares that Johnny will now serve him. To ensure his obedience, he takes Roxanne hostage, giving Johnny no choice but to do as he commands. With no other options, Johnny heads back to the cemetery and demands the contract from the gravedigger. The old man reveals that it had been hidden in the handle of his shovel all along. As Johnny takes the parchment, the gravedigger tells him they must leave immediately. Then, in an astonishing moment, he transforms into the Ghost Rider, revealing his true identity as Carter Slade. Together, Johnny and Carter Slade ride toward San Venganza, flames streaking across the desert as they close in on their final battle. As they approach, Slade stops, knowing this will be his last transformation. He hands Johnny a shotgun as a parting gift before riding off into the horizon, disappearing into the distance. In the abandoned village of San Venganza, Blackheart senses Johnny's arrival and sends Wallow, the water demon, to stop him. Emerging from the shadows, Wallow drags Johnny underwater, trying to drown him in the Cursed Land's depths. But Johnny manages to transform mid-battle, unleashing his penance stare. The moment Wallow meets his burning gaze, his soul ignites from the inside out, reducing him to nothing. With no more obstacles, Johnny heads straight to the heart of San Venganza, where Blackheart is waiting. Knowing that Roxanne will be killed if he transforms, Johnny holds back, instead showing Blackheart the contract. He demands that Roxanne be freed. Once he sees that she's safe, Johnny steps forward and hands over the scroll. But the moment Blackheart touches the contract, Johnny transforms into the Ghost Rider. The battle begins. Blackheart hurls Johnny to the ground, but Johnny retaliates, launching fireballs at the demon's back. With daylight approaching, he wraps his flaming chain around Blackheart's arm, trying to drag him down. But the demon overpowers him, throwing Johnny down an old well. As the first rays of sunlight break over the horizon, Johnny's transformation fades, leaving him vulnerable. Meanwhile, Blackheart reads the contract aloud, unleashing over 1,000 corrupted souls. One by one, they pour into his body, merging into a single monstrous entity, Legion. Roxanne rushes to Johnny, pleading with him to run. But Johnny knows there's no escape. Blackheart won't stop until he destroys them both. Determined to fight, Johnny grabs the shotgun and fires at the demon. But human weapons are useless against Legion, and Blackheart easily knocks Johnny aside. As Johnny lies helpless, Blackheart prepares to consume his soul. But before he can, Roxanne picks up the shotgun and fires at Legion until the ammunition runs out. The attack does nothing, but it draws the demon's attention to her. Desperate to protect her, Johnny tells Roxanne to throw him the gun. The moment it lands in his hands, he channels his power through it, transforming the shotgun into a hellish weapon. With one fiery blast, he strikes Blackheart, sending flames ripping through his body. But even as he burns, Legion reforms, gathering the souls back into himself. That's when Johnny realizes Blackheart finally has a soul, now vulnerable to the penance stare. With renewed determination, Johnny transforms back into the Ghost Rider and unleashes his most powerful attack. Blackheart is forced to endure the suffering of every single soul he consumed. Thousands of voices scream through him, each one dragging him deeper into torment. His body writhes in agony before finally disintegrating into ashes. With the battle won, Mephisto appears, ready to claim the Ghost Rider's power. But Johnny refuses. Instead of surrendering his curse, he declares that he will use the Spirit of Vengeance against its own master. From now on, he will fight against evil, not for Mephisto, but against him. With that, Johnny rides off into the horizon, forever cursed, but now in control of his own destiny. Ghost Rider, Spirit of Vengeance opens in the mountain roads of Europe, where a French biker named Moreau speeds toward a hidden monastery. Inside, a secret religious order shelters a woman and her son. Believing they hold the key to an ancient prophecy, Moreau insists they must be taken to safety before dark forces come for them. Unfortunately, his fears are realized when mercenaries invade the monastery, eliminating everyone in their path. The ruthless group is led by Ray Kerrigan, an illegal arms dealer, who orders his men to find the boy at all costs. Meanwhile, inside the monastery, Danny Ketch, the boy in question, escapes his room alongside his mother, Nadia. But they don't get far. Kerrigan's men corner them, weapons drawn. Just as all hope seems lost, Moreau arrives, taking down the gunman. He urges Nadia to trust him, promising to keep them safe, but Nadia is hesitant. Instead of following Moreau, she spots a monastery vehicle, grabs Danny, and speeds off on her own. Moreau has no choice but to chase after her on his motorcycle, but Kerrigan and his men are right behind him. What follows is a high-speed chase down the highway. Kerrigan pulls out his gun, firing at Moreau's bike. The bullets land, sending Moreau spinning off the road. But before he falls, he fires back, hitting the tires of Kerrigan's car, causing it to flip over. Despite the crash, Kerrigan survives. Meanwhile, Moreau realizes that the secret order has been completely wiped out. With no one left to protect Danny, he seeks out a different kind of biker. Johnny Blaze, the Ghost Rider. Some time ago, Johnny made a pact with the demon Rourke, but he was deceived, and now his body is cursed, possessed by the spirit of vengeance Zarathos. Whenever evil is near, he transforms into the Ghost Rider, his head engulfed in flames. Since then, Johnny has lived in hiding, struggling to control his curse while hunting down evil forces in secret. Asking for his help in protecting Danny, Johnny refuses, even attacking Moreau with his massive iron chain. But the Frenchman makes him an offer he can't ignore. If Johnny helps, Moreau will free him from his curse forever. Still reluctant but desperate for freedom, Johnny Blaze accepts the deal. As night falls, Johnny summons Zarathos and the transformation begins. His body ignites, his flesh burns away, and the spirit of vengeance takes over. Now fully transformed into the Ghost Rider, he roars to life on his flaming motorcycle and speeds off into the night. He has to hurry. Nadia and Danny are in danger. On a deserted road, Kerrigan and his mercenaries close in on them. Realizing she has no escape, Nadia is forced to stop in an abandoned area. Desperate, she draws her gun but is quickly overpowered. Begging for Danny's life, she pleads with Kerrigan to let her son go. But the villain doesn't care about Danny, he only wants to eliminate Nadia. With a cold smirk, he raises his gun to her head, ready to pull the trigger. Just then, a blazing motorcycle flies through the air and crashes onto the ground nearby. The flames flicker as a dark figure rises from the wreckage, his skull ablaze, his clothes blackened by fire. The Ghost Rider has arrived. Kerrigan, taken aback, quickly orders his men to open fire. The mercenaries unload their weapons, but every bullet misses or burns away before reaching him. With one swift motion, Ghost Rider swings his flaming chain, wrapping it around one of the gunmen. The unlucky mercenary screams as his body is instantly incinerated. The second gunman tries to shoot, but Ghost Rider dodges effortlessly. Then he turns his gaze upon him and unleashes his most powerful weapon, the penance stare. The mercenary freezes as his own sins consume him from the inside out. Realizing that he has completely underestimated his opponent, Kerrigan panics. He and his remaining men grab grenade launchers and fire. The explosion hits its mark, blasting Ghost Rider backward. As the flames settle, Kerrigan seizes the moment, grabs Danny, and escapes into the night. The next day, Kerrigan contacts his employer, none other than Rourke, the demon who once made a pact with Johnny Blaze. Frustrated, Kerrigan demands more money, complaining that no one told him he'd have to deal with a biker possessed by a burning spirit. Rourke immediately realizes who he's talking about. Intrigued, he asks to speak with Danny. As soon as the boy is put on the line, the demon casts a spell, making Danny completely untraceable to any supernatural force. With his location now hidden, Rourke gives one final order: bring the boy to him. Meanwhile, Johnny Blaze wakes up in a hospital bed. A nurse is tending to him, but the moment she turns away, he seizes the opportunity. He steals medicine from the supply cabinet, quickly retrieves his clothes, and escapes the hospital. Outside, he runs into Nadia. But before he can say a word, she pulls a gun on him, pressing it against his head. She demands to know why he's following her. Johnny calmly explains that he made a deal with Moreau to protect Danny. But now something is wrong. He can no longer sense the boy's presence. If they're going to find him, he needs Nadia's help. Reluctantly, Nadia agrees. The two take a pickup truck, loading Johnny's motorcycle in the back, and set off down the road. As they drive, Nadia reveals the truth. Years ago, Kerrigan was her boyfriend, but when she tried to leave him, he threw her off a building, leaving her for dead. That's when Rourke found her. The demon offered her a deal, her life in exchange for something far greater. Desperate to survive, she accepted. But the cost was unimaginable. She would give birth to Danny, a child with a dark destiny, meant to become the vessel for Rourke's ultimate power. Meanwhile, Danny remains in Kerrigan's custody, being transported by car to his father, Rourke. But the boy refuses to go down without a fight. He suddenly lunges forward, grabbing the steering wheel and jerking it to the side. The car swerves violently across the road as Kerrigan struggles to regain control. Distracted, he fails to see a wall ahead. The vehicle slams into it, flipping over and crashing in the middle of the road. Danny manages to escape, but Kerrigan and his men quickly recover and give chase. Unfortunately, Danny twists his ankle while running, slowing him down. Kerrigan catches up and grabs him, ensuring he won't escape again. Later, they come across a young couple camping in their van. But their luck is short-lived. Kerrigan kills them both without hesitation, stealing their vehicle and continuing his journey, Danny tied up in the backseat. Meanwhile, Nadia and Johnny track Kerrigan's location. Knowing that one of Kerrigan's contacts might have information, they storm the man's hideout. Nadia holds him at gunpoint, forcing him to talk. But Johnny starts to feel something unsettling. Zarathos is stirring inside him, ready to take over. He realizes that once the spirit of vengeance manifests, it won't just target the criminals. It might attack Nadia as well. Fighting to suppress the transformation, Johnny demands to know where Kerrigan took Danny. Under pressure, the man reveals that he went to an old quarry. Nadia recognizes the place immediately, but before she can act, Johnny knows he can't hold Zarathos back any longer. He jumps onto his motorcycle and speeds off alone, letting the transformation consume him as he races toward the quarry. At the quarry, Kerrigan meets with an arms dealer, negotiating for heavy weapons powerful enough to stop the Ghost Rider. He knows that brute force alone won't work, he needs something devastating. Meanwhile, Nadia arrives at the scene. She sneaks through the area and finds Danny tied up inside a warehouse. Quickly, she unties him, but just as they're about to escape, one of Kerrigan's men appears. The henchman knocks Nadia to the ground and pulls out a gun, ready to eliminate her on the spot. But before he can pull the trigger, a deep rumbling sound fills the air. Distracted, Nadia pulls out a hidden gun and shoots him down. Outside, Kerrigan also hears the engine and knows exactly what's coming. Acting fast, he grabs a bazooka and fires a heat-guided missile. The weapon locks onto the Ghost Rider's flames, streaking toward its target. It hits with a massive explosion. Kerrigan celebrates his supposed victory until the smoke clears. Ghost Rider is still standing, staring at him from a distance. His hellfire burns even brighter as he energizes his chain with the flames of hell. Without hesitation, he tears through Kerrigan's mercenaries one by one. One of the gunmen fires at him, but Ghost Rider simply absorbs the bullets, then spits them back at the man, tearing him apart. With the battlefield cleared, Ghost Rider charges toward Kerrigan. The arms dealer reloads his bazooka and fires again. The missile strikes directly, the explosion temporarily dimming Ghost Rider's flames. For a moment it looks like he might actually be defeated, but then he spots a massive mining machine nearby. With a single touch he engulfs it in hellfire, transforming it into a monstrous flaming war machine. Now unstoppable, Ghost Rider rampages through the quarry, crushing everything in his path and eliminating anyone who dares stand against him. Meanwhile, Kerrigan sees Nadia and Danny fleeing. Desperate, he raises his gun to shoot them, but before he can fire, Ghost Rider yanks him away with his burning chain. As the villain dangles helplessly, Ghost Rider prepares to finish him. But before he can strike, he notices Nadia and Danny escaping. Something inside him hesitates. Letting Kerrigan go, he rides off, quickly catching up to Nadia's car. In a blur, he pulls her out and prepares to use the penance stare on her. But before he can, Danny steps out of the vehicle. With an unshakable voice, he orders the Ghost Rider to let her go. To everyone's shock, Ghost Rider obeys. As he moves toward Danny, something strange happens. The spirit of vengeance weakens the closer he gets, until finally, the flames die out completely. Zarathos vanishes, leaving only Johnny blaze. As the day passes, the quarry lies in ruins, reduced to nothing but smoke and debris in the wake of Ghost Rider's destruction. Suddenly, Rourke appears at the site, surveying the devastation. Among the wreckage, he finds Kerrigan barely alive, crushed beneath the rubble. But Rourke isn't done with him yet. Knowing that he still needs Kerrigan's services, the demon grants him a second chance. Using his dark powers, he revives Kerrigan, but not as the man he once was. As Kerrigan gasps back to life, his skin pales to an unnatural shade and his hair turns stark white. But his transformation doesn't stop there. He has been reborn as Blackout, now acquiring superhuman strength and the ability to decay anything he touches. Eager to test his new powers, he spots a medic tending to the injured nearby. Without hesitation, he reaches out and places his hand on the man's shoulder. In an instant, the medic's body withers away, disintegrating into dust. Satisfied, Blackout turns to Rourke, awaiting his next command. Rourke's orders are simple. Find Danny. Meanwhile, Johnny, Nadia, and Danny are on the road. Their goal is to find Moreau, hoping he can guide them to safety. Moments later, Moreau catches up with them on his motorcycle and leads them toward his hidden sanctuary. During the ride, Johnny seizes the opportunity to bond with Danny. Wanting to give him a moment of relief from all the chaos, he shows off his motorcycle stunts, taking Danny along for the ride. For a brief moment, the boy smiles, feeling free. But their respite won't last long. Blackout is on their trail, and he's getting closer and closer. After hours of travel, the group finally arrives at Moreau's secret hideout, where the rest of his organization remains in hiding. There, they meet Methodius, a monk who promises to protect Nadia and Danny, ensuring that the prophecy does not come true. However, Johnny must take a different path. As Moreau promised, he will finally be freed from the spirit of vengeance. Danny doesn't approve of Johnny's decision, but Johnny explains that his curse puts both Danny and Nadia in danger. He can't risk hurting them. With that, Johnny follows Moreau to a hidden cave, where rows of ancient wines line the walls. This is where the ritual to break his curse will take place. But before it begins, Johnny needs answers. He wants to know what the spirit of vengeance inside him truly is. Moreau reveals that Zarathos was once an angel of justice. However, he was corrupted by darkness and became obsessed with vengeance instead of justice. Johnny wonders, is it possible to restore Zarathos? Could he bring him back to what he was meant to be, a force of justice rather than destruction? Moreau believes it is possible. But Johnny hesitates. Despite the chance for redemption, he chooses to go through with the ritual and rid himself of the curse once and for all. Before they begin, Moreau tells Johnny that he must confront his greatest sin. Johnny reveals the painful truth. He made the pact with Rourke out of selfishness, refusing to let his father go even though he knew it was his time. Since then, he has been haunted by guilt, not just for becoming the Ghost Rider, but for every soul he has condemned along the way. Seeing this genuine remorse, Moreau tells Johnny that he is now ready for the ritual. He offers him bread and wine, symbols of renewal and reflection. Then Moreau leads Johnny down a hidden path deep within the cave. Only Johnny can follow this path. As he steps forward, he finds himself in a vast chamber filled with light streaming from every direction. The sunlight begins to affect him, and Johnny feels Zarathos struggling to hold on. Caught in a battle within his own soul, Johnny's mind flashes back to the moment he met Rourke, when he sealed his fate with the pact that changed his life forever. Finally, despite Zarathar's resistance, the spirit is forced out of Johnny's body. As the power leaves him, Johnny collapses to the ground, unconscious. Hours later, Johnny wakes up feeling different. The curse is gone. Overwhelmed with relief, he rushes out of the cave to find Moreau and tell him the news. Instead, Johnny hears Nadia screaming in the distance. Without hesitation, he sprints toward the sound only to discover a horrifying scene. Nadia, Moreau, and Danny are being taken by the monks. Johnny tries to intervene, but without the powers of the Ghost Rider, he is easily overpowered. Methodius and the monks reveal their true intentions. They plan to eliminate Danny to ensure that the prophecy never comes true. Moreau pleads with them, trying to reason with his former allies, but they refuse to listen. The three are imprisoned, left powerless to stop what is coming. Meanwhile, Methodius prepares to eliminate Danny. Surrounded by monks, Danny has nowhere to run. Methodius draws a sharp blade, raising it high above his head, preparing to strike. Just as he is about to bring the weapon down, Blackout arrives. With his newfound power, he tears through the monks, eliminating them one by one. Methodius attempts to fight back, but Blackout disintegrates his blade with a single touch. Desperate, the monk throws a punch, but the moment his hand makes contact, it begins to decay and crumble into dust. Now defenseless, Methodius stares in horror as Blackout grips his head. With one final move, Kerrigan plunges his fingers into Methodius's eyes, disintegrating his skull entirely. With all the monks gone, Blackout picks up Danny and vanishes into the night, taking him straight to Rourke. Sometime later, Johnny, Morrow, and Nadia manage to free themselves, but Danny is nowhere to be found. They quickly realize that the boy has likely been captured by Rourke. Johnny demands to know why the demon is so interested in him, and Morrow explains the terrifying truth. Rourke plans to use Danny's body to house his own soul through a mob ritual. Hearing this, Johnny is determined to save Danny, even without Zara's spirit to aid him. Morrow knows exactly where the ritual will take place, so the three set out for the location. But first, they arm themselves with weapons from the monk's armory, preparing for the battle ahead. Meanwhile, Blackout finally delivers Danny to Rourke. The demon reveals a shocking secret. He is the boy's father, a result of the pact he made with Nadia. He also explains that his current body is failing, unable to contain his immense power, and is slowly deteriorating. To survive, he plans to transfer his soul into Danny's half-human, half-demon body, making him stronger than ever. Strong enough to rule the world, Danny refuses to accept this fate. But before he can resist, Rourke injects him with a sedative, knocking him unconscious. With the boy powerless to stop him, Rourke carries him to a massive arena where the ritual is about to begin. As dusk falls, Johnny and Morrow arrive at the scene. Nadia, already armed, swiftly takes down the security guards. With the path now clear, Morrow decides to handle the remaining guards while Johnny sneaks into the arena to rescue Danny. Sticking to the plan, the biker moves quickly and finally finds the boy, just as the ritual begins, and Rourke's soul starts to take over his body. At that moment, Morrow bursts into the middle of the demon's followers and opens fire, eliminating them one by one. The sudden attack catches Rourke's attention, giving Johnny the chance to get closer. Wasting no time, he lands a punch straight to the villain's face and tries to pull Danny away. But it's too late. The boy is already under the demon's influence. As Johnny reaches for him, Danny, now possessed by Rourke's power, recovers from the blow and shoves the biker aside with unnatural strength. Things go from bad to worse when Morrow finds himself face to face with Blackout. The enemy grabs his arm, unleashing his deadly power to consume Morrow's body. The warrior fights to resist, but realizing there's no way out, he uses the last of his strength to headbutt Carrion before disintegrating into dust. Now Johnny stands alone, powerless, as Blackout prepares to destroy him with his corrosive touch. But before he can strike, Danny suddenly steps forward. Johnny desperately tries to reach him, hoping to break through Rourke's influence. However, the boy has already regained control of himself. Realizing that he shares his father's power, Danny makes a bold decision. He rushes toward Johnny and unleashes a blast of fire from his mouth, restoring Zara's spirit to the biker's body. With this, the Ghost Rider is reborn. Flames engulf him as he wields his burning chain, wiping out everything in his path. But before Johnny can reach Danny, Rourke seizes the unconscious boy and retreats with Carrion and his army of mercenaries. Determined not to let them escape, the Ghost Rider summons his motorcycle. Johnny soon catches up with him. Igniting a fierce chase, Rourke's men fire at him using a grenade launcher mounted on one of the vehicles, but the biker is relentless. He seizes control of a nearby truck and with his power transforms it into a flaming machine of destruction. Using its newfound strength, he rams into enemy cars, sending them crashing off the road. Just then, Nadia arrives in a separate vehicle, determined to assist the Ghost Rider and rescue Danny. But before she can reach him, Carrion leaps onto her car's hood. With just a single touch, he shatters the windshield and lunges at her. Seeing this, the Ghost Rider lashes out with his chain, yanking the villain away. The two then engage in a brutal fight atop the truck. Meanwhile, Blackout attempts to use his deadly power to destroy Johnny, but the biker withstands the attack. The battle rages on as they leap onto Nadia's car, exchanging blow after blow. Carrion gains the upper hand, grabbing Johnny by the throat and squeezing tight, causing his flames to flicker and weaken. But the Ghost Rider refuses to fall. Summoning his last reserves of strength, he unleashes the penance stare, burning through Carrion's very soul. Unable to resist its power, the villain is destroyed, his body thrown onto the road where Nadia's car finishes the job. Now only Rourke remains. The Ghost Rider summons his motorcycle, charging at his greatest enemy. When he finally catches up, he swings his chain, latching it onto the car's exhaust pipe. With one powerful tug, he sends Rourke's vehicle tumbling off the road. Severely injured from the crash, Rourke desperately tries to crawl away, but the Ghost Rider has no intention of letting him escape. With one final strike, he hurls his blazing chain, launching the demon into the air before slamming him down, sending him back to the depths of hell. With the enemy finally vanquished, Zarathos revels in victory, until he hears Nadia's desperate cries. Danny was still inside the wrecked car, and the impact of the crash had left him unconscious. For the first time, the spirit of vengeance feels guilt. Realizing the cost of his battle, acting quickly, he pulls the boy's motionless body from the wreckage and returns him to his mother. Moments later, Johnny reverts to his human form, but something has changed. He senses that Zarathos has regained his original angelic nature, his power now manifesting in brilliant blue flames on Johnny's hand. Embracing this newfound strength, Johnny uses it to revive Danny. The boy stirs, opening his eyes, finally free from Rourke and the dark prophecy. Thanks to Johnny's efforts, Nadia and her son can now live in peace. As for Johnny Blaze, he accepts the spirit of Zarathos, who has returned to his true form as an angel of justice. With blue flames now burning within him, Johnny remains forever bonded with the entity, continuing his path as the legendary Ghost Rider. Thanks for staying until the end. Your love and support is always appreciated, and as always, stay awesome and take care.